Zoom recording. Uh, it's time to get started. I'm going to mute everybody, and then Dr. Tobias and Dr. Massengill, you can unmute yourself as you need to. Okay. Welcome to our 605 add-on licensure class for summer 2020. This is May the 26th, and it is the second of our 10 classes. And I was saying earlier that we are, after tonight, we are 2/10 or 1/5 of the semester complete, which leads me into what I need to say is that if you were with Dr. Lamb last night with his town hall, one of the things that I stressed towards the end was that we cannot procrastinate. We cannot say, well, I'll get to this, at the end of the week or whatever. You've got to make sure that you are working on a daily basis in order to keep up with all of the demands for this summer. It is, again, we've told you from the beginning, is 10 weeks will be gone before you know it, and I don't want anybody, or we don't want anybody, at the end of the 10 weeks to not be ready for us to clear you and to move you on so that you can become marketable for an administrative job for next school year. So please, please, please make sure that you are pacing yourself. I'm going to give away one of our secrets, Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias, and they may know it, but I don't know. We have the freedom to go into Blackboard, and we know when you are there and when you're not there. We know the last time that you went into Blackboard, and if you are one that waits until the last minute to do work, then it's going to tell us that this is when you were in Blackboard, this is when you submitted your work. So, it's my business to be in your business this summer, because, we do want you to be successful. And so if I come across pushy, guess what? I am pushy because I have to be. If Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias get into your business, it's because I've told them to get into your business, because they have to, and we all want you to be successful. So please know that you're going to hear this same sermon from me probably every week. You may start getting an email from me if I don't think that you're where you need to be, simply because I do not want any student left behind at the end of the summer. So with that in mind, I want us to, we have completed week 1, and everybody, your assignment 1 was turned in. I've given feedback on everybody's assignments. One of the classes, there was a problem, a technical problem in there, but it should be fixed now, and they were not able to see, some of the students were not able to see their grade and their comments, but that should be corrected now. One of the things that I will point out as you're doing your assignments, and I've talked with a couple of the students about this, if it says to write a brief summary of something, we mean brief because you don't have time to write a dissertation or anything, or we're not looking for research, but we do want you to put enough thought into it that it it'll give the instructor, give me an idea that I know that you've read the reading, I know that you've put thought into it, and I need to see a reflection of you in all of the work that you're doing. 605 is just about everything that you do will serve as a self-reflection. And what we are wanting you to do as you are moving through this class, as you are doing the readings, as you're doing the assignments, as you're working together in your Zoom groups, I want you to begin seeing yourself as the administrator that you want to be. And so all of these assignments should serve as a self-reflection, and you should look in the mirror, and when you're doing something, you should see yourself and you should talk to yourself, and you should respond based on the kind of administrator that you strive to be, But in the process of all of this, you're going to find out things about yourself in some of the activities that you're going to do that will help you better define yourself, because we all have strengths and we all have areas that we need improvement in. Our strengths are those things that will accentuate us and help us to um, become the great leaders that we all want to be. But the areas that we need help in, we need to know what those are so that we can identify them and we can work on them. We can ask those people that work with us, to help us with that. And the thing is, you can't do everything. You can't know everything. And Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias both know this, but the things that they are not the best at, guess what? They've learned how to be good leaders, and they surround themselves with competent people that can make them look good as well. So, those are the kinds of things that we want you, some big takeaways that you should learn from having been in 605 by the end of the summer. I am going to point out, Jeanette, are you with us?
Yes. Did you say Cassandra?
Keep yourself unmuted. I'm going to.
Oh, sorry, sir.
I will do that. Keep yourself unmuted. I'm going to pull up, and I will do this occasionally. This is Jeanette's assignment, and I just want to. There were other people that did good work, but I just want to say, Jeanette, your work epitomized what I wanted this assignment to be, or what any professor would have wanted this assignment to be. You stuck to the question. Your APA work, your style, everything, it was letter perfect. But the thing that I want to point out is how, and when I read your work, I was able to see Jeanette had read her textbook. She had focused on what the author had to say, but more than that, Jeanette took what the author had to say and she applied it to herself. Jeanette, can I put you on the spot? Can I ask you to just speak for a minute or so just about this assignment and what it meant to you?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Can you get a little bit closer?
Yes. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. Okay, so you wanted me to speak with how I was directly applying it?
Yes. Some of the comments that you made in the article, because you, based on how you responded to this activity, you were able to do a lot of self-evaluation, and you saw a lot of yourself in this assignment, and there were some good takeaways, and that's what I wanted you to talk about.
Well, right now I'm working as an assistant principal. I'm a full-time intern this year. And I noticed that when I was reading that I was spending a lot of time in the managerial part of my position and less in the leadership part. And it just really made me reflect on what a tall order it is to be a principal, because you're supposed to be a visionary, but you're also supposed to have clear processes in your school. And it's a lot to do. It's a lot to expect of just one person, and how important it probably would be as a principal to have a really strong assistant principal and team to be able to help me be the best leader that I could be. And I don't see how one person could possibly do that all.
Right. Thank you, Jeanette, and again, great job on this assignment. Dr. Tobias, will you come? Can you unmute yourself? In your role as a principal, and you've been an assistant principal as well, right? And this assignment was talking about the difference between being a leader and being a manager. Just off the top of your head, would you talk about just for maybe a minute about the differences in your role as a principal?
Sure. So when I was in the seats of the students here, one of the things I learned more about was being a manager, like just to manage everything. And I found that over the years, I evolved into not being a manager, more of a organizational leader that learns how to manage other people well too. So I don't do everything in my role. Um, if you go to my school, most people will tell you that one of my strengths is that I build leaders, because we have to learn what parts of the job we have to manage and what parts to give away. And that's about evolving as a leader. My first thing is to make sure that kids are treated well and that adults are also treated well. And so to do all of that, I can't have my hand in everything. And sometimes as managers, we think we got to do all of that. And that's just not my style. I don't do that. I'm a collaborative leader, and I believe in finding strengths and weaknesses. You just alluded to it, Dr. Stedman, about surrounding yourself with people who kind of have your back or who have different qualities. I'm the queen of that. I'm very not OCD, and I have a tendency to surround myself with half of my staff is OCD. Drives me crazy, but that's deliberate because I know that's my level of weakness and where I am. So those are some of the skills as a good leader you have to dig into, and not just managing the everyday. I just don't thrive in that environment, but we also have to learn how to do it. So that's kind of my
That's
take.
great. Well, thank you. Dr. Massengill, can you piggyback on that for maybe 1 minute?
Yeah, so I have two quick things I would add to that. And the first one is a saying that I tell my staff all the time when they present a problem to me is let's own the problem and command the solution. So a lot of times the solutions that they can come up with through collaborating with each other are better than the ones in their mind than the one that I would give them anyway. So why not help me come up with that solution? And the other is don't sweep your trash into my pile. And so a lot of times what will happen is we have a problem and then we want to let the principal fix it because I don't want to deal with it, even though the person who's presented the problem may be the best person to fix it. And so those two things combined with surrounding yourself with people who complement your deficits, like Dr. Tobias referenced, I think are absolutely huge.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Massengill. I'm going to mute everybody again and again. Unmute yourself as you need to. Let's take a look at next week's assignment. Excuse me, just 1 second. Here it is. This will be from the other textbook, the Glickman textbook, but it says there are many big ideas presented by the authors in the opening 3 chapters of Glickman. And these are 3 of them, but it's not limited to these. Supervision and moral purpose, factors that describe the schools of the present, and visions of effective schools. What you are to do is to pick one of these topics that resonate with you based on your personal experience and briefly describe your experience as it relates to the text reading. Again, you're going to comment on what you've read because there will be sections of the reading that you will refer to. But what I'm looking for is you are to do some soul searching. And when I read your assignment, I need to be able I need to be able to feel you and to see you and to understand you better as a result of having completed this assignment. But more importantly, I want you to find yourself in this assignment. Again, it's not a long assignment, and it doesn't have to be a long assignment, but I want it to be something that you put a lot of thought into. I promise you this, I read every one of these assignments and I read them carefully. So I want you to take your time and I want you to do me a really good job on this assignment. Okay? Any question about the assignment? I think it's going to be pretty much self-explained once you get into the reading. I know you've got a lot to do this summer, but the readings in these textbooks are major assignments and can help you tremendously as you are moving into the role of an administrator. And Jeanette's already alluded to it. She's serving as an assistant principal already, and she probably is already seeing a lot of this in her day-to-day practice as an assistant principal. So, and with that in mind, I want us to delve into a review of what, some review of what we did last week. I want to talk about, I have gotten some, I've begun to get some work with the CAP, task 1, even though it's not due until this weekend. Some people have completed task 1, or some have completed more than task 1, but I've begun to look at it, and the thing that I want to point out mostly as you're working with the CAP is, do not deviate from the directions that you're given. Go back to the rubric requirements and those directions and make sure that you are following them verbatim. And if you'll use the helpful hints document that I've given you, I've basically taken the rubrics and I've taken the directions and I've just simply broken them down. You're not required to use this, but a wise person would take it and use it, because that's what I've done. I looked at this just as if I were the evaluator, and I have broken it down to make sure that it encumbers every component that an evaluator will be looking for when your work is finally submitted to TaskStream. Remember in Blackboard that there is an example, a CAP example for South Carolina and a CAP example for North Carolina, a complete example there. Dr. Lamb put it in there. Is somebody's work from 2019, is it the best work? It may not be the best work. It may not even be accomplished work, but it does show you the format, and it did pass. It was at least, it was at least passable work. So don't look at that. Look at the format. Look at how they've done it. And you will see these 5 areas for North Carolina and South Carolina. They have boldface empowerment, and they've done an analysis of empowerment. They've boldface leadership. They've done an analysis of that. Make it so that when your evaluator looks at your work, they don't have to question whether you have or have not done all 5 of these areas. And remember, these 5 areas are going to flow consistently throughout your work with the CAP. Again, as a reminder, I've given you where you can go and actually find the most recent North Carolina Teacher Condition Survey results in North Carolina. South Carolina, I told you to go in there and look at those as well, simply because it will tell you what you need to go back and look at when you look at your advanced ed report for South Carolina, what the information that you're looking for, and just simply mirror the same information in your work as it appears in the advanced ed report, just like it would be in the North Carolina Teacher Working Condition Survey. Remember, I told you last week that when you click on a school district and then you go to a school, there would be 3 icons, and to click on each one of them, and then that in column 1, that when you click on that will give you a detailed report. Then click on number 2, that will give you a summary report. And remember, I told you the summary report was the one that that would be the one most beneficial for the work that you will be doing. This is the one that I highly recommend. However, you can get good information from all 3 of them if you need it. I'm not telling you not to use it, but this is the one that puts it the most concise for your purposes. So I would ask you to really focus on that second icon when you're looking, and this is there for your use. You don't have to go ask your principal for it or anybody else. This is there for your use, and you've got everything you need to do the analysis that you need for your school. Make sure that, and you can copy and paste the bar graphs and the information that's in there to show what you're talking about. In South Carolina, again, that information is going to be in your advanced ed report. And there are some other sources of information that you can get, but those are the main places where you will get your information. Remember, we said that you were going to be doing 3 analyses as a result of completing the CAP. The first one would be a needs assessment for task 1. The second one, the school environmental analysis. And the third one, the cultural competence assessment. We talked about the first 2 last week, and I want to quickly review what is going to be due this week, and that is your needs assessment. If you look at what I have outlined, again, this is taken directly from the prompt and the directions for completing the CAP. If you'll follow these directions, like for prompt 1, you are to complete an analysis of your school's climate for each of these 5 areas. You simply go to the report. You look at empowerment. What were the results for empowerment? And you talk about it. You narratively talk about it. And then you're going to show whatever you're talking about with some graphic information as well. Again, it's not rocket science. It's all there for you. And all you've got to do is read it and understand it and talk about it for prompt number 1. When you get to prompt number 2, you're to take that information that you had in prompt number 1. You're to complete a needs assessment based on what you read in prompt number 1, your findings in prompt number 1. And that needs assessment there are 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 5 bulleted areas here. You're going to write about, your needs assessment is going to consist of these 5 areas based on the information that you gather from your research in prompt number 1. And when you get through with that, just remember that it's a background description of the setting. Again, what does your school look like? Tell me about your school. You've done that many times already in this program. Then the second one, a clear statement of why are you doing this needs assessment? Then who is helping you with it? Then what were your findings? What were the results? When you got in there, what did you find for each of those 5 areas? And then finally, based on all of that, you and your team, whoever you're working with, you're going to come up with a set of recommendations that identifies strategies that's going to help lead the school to a safer, more culturally diverse environment for teaching and learning. Your whole purpose is that this is where we are based on what I found. We think that if we do all of this based on our findings, that we can get better at who we are. And that's the whole purpose right here. And that's it. That's all you have to do for task number 1. Task number 2 is the second one. It's your school environmental analysis. And many of you are at this place already, so I'm going to try to get through at least the task so it doesn't hold anybody back. And by next week, my goal is to go ahead and introduce you to the SIOP, so at least you will have an understanding of all of it as you get to it, and nobody will be held back. But this is the second of the analyses that you have to do. And with this, you, the candidate, are going to use quantitative data instruments. Now, where will you find these quantitative data instruments? Back there in remember when I told you where the teacher working condition survey was? And remember when I said if you click on those 3 icons that it'll give you lots of information? Guess what? When you look at all those numbers and all those percentages and all that, that's the quantitative data that I'm talking about. So you're going to use that information to help understand the staff perceptions of the school environment, because that's what that survey was. It's what the staff thought. Now, when you go to the link for the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions and review the summary results, again, you're using the quantitative data when you use the percentages and all other information that you see graphically represented there. Now, in addition to that, in addition to using that existing data and information, you're going to be responsible for engaging in qualitative research. Now, this is going to be done in the following ways. We talked about last week, and I'm going to reiterate again, that when you do a survey, when you talk to somebody, when you interview somebody, when you do a focus group, when you interview, all of these are forms of those are forms of qualitative research. So in addition to that, you need to spend some time, and you've got to decide, who my focus group's going to be. And again, I know you're not in school. I know you don't. It may not be, but you may not be able to get but 2 or 3 people together. I don't know. Your interview can be one-on-one, but you need to make sure that you find quality people that you respect, that's going to give you not always what you want to hear, but the right answers, good responses. They're going to be honest with you. And remember, I told you that when you do that, when you do this, you don't. No 2 people may have exactly the same kind of work when they turn in with task 2. How one person goes about getting their qualitative data may be differently from how somebody else goes about it and gets their qualitative data. You can do a Zoom session with somebody. I don't care. You've got the Zoom account. However, you may be able to meet a small group face-to-face at your school. That is entirely left up to you. But what are you doing there? You're going to go back to those same 5 areas that we talked about up here, the same 5 areas that you researched in task 1, empowerment, leadership, facilities, resource, and time. And again, in 2018, this is what teachers had to say. Now, when you, and in 2 years, a lot can change, a lot can happen. Administration changes. And we talked about this last week. Now, if the leadership in 2018 was somebody differently than you have now, then, and the scores, let's say the scores were low, and that principal's no longer there. If a new person came and things have begun moving in the right direction, guess what? You could take 5 of those same questions and you could survey 3 or 4 people in a focus group or talk to them, and guess what? More than likely, the results are not going to be the same as they were in 2018. So the purpose is to go back and to not reinvent the wheel, but take some of the same questions, not all of them. When you get to facilities, there may not be a problem with facilities. Everything may look good. You may have gotten high results, and if that's the case, you just simply to say that that there was not a need because, and you prove it. You show the results. Based on the 2018, we don't have a problem with facilities. I'm just using that as an example. But if there was a problem with leadership, then you probably need, not probably, you need to come up with some type of survey. You need to find out some way that you're going to survey an audience of people so that you can look at some new results that you can talk about in task 2. And again, you're still working on those same 5 areas. I've talked about all of that. I don't need to say that again. Your job is, as a candidate, you must demonstrate how the qualitative data collected through the surveys, observations, and again, I remember I told you, I said that before COVID-19, that before March 13th, that you spent a lot of time up and down those halls. You worked with people for a better part of the year. There's things that you know about your school that's for real, that you can actually talk about as well, because you've observed it. That's a part of qualitative research. You can go back, and because you work there, you can use information prior to March 13th that you know is for real in your task 2. Use information from your most recent school report card. That's information that's out there, and any other sources for collecting data. This information is public knowledge, and you shouldn't have any problem getting that work. Please note that accomplished work for the CAP will interpret raw data collected in the school and will graphically present the data within the context of the narrative in a manner that informs beyond existing quantitative data. Remember last week I told you, I can go to your school report card and I can see what it says. I can go to your teacher working conditions survey and I can click on it just like you can, and I know what it says. You're showing me that up there, but when you get down here, I need you to tell me more based on what you were able to find out with the surveys that you've conducted or with the interviews that you've conducted. You should be able to take it up a notch, and you should take it up another level in order for us to get to the point that we can do the action plan that we're ultimately going to be able to do. Any questions about task 1 and task 2 at this point? It's okay to unmute yourself if you even have a question. Is everything clear at this point? Great, great.
Not understanding. Can I ask one question?
Sure. And who is this?
This is Brenda Coney.
Hey, Brenda.
How you doing? When you're looking at the teacher working condition, I'm just trying to make sure I have clarity. That section for resource and is combined. Facilities and resources is considered one section on a teacher working condition survey. Do you want it split out, or can you report them as one section?
No, I want you to split them out and talk about them separately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and some of it may be, some of the information may be the same, but that's okay. Just show them as 5 separate entities, because when you're evaluated, your evaluator is going to look for 5 different areas. I would be able to pick it out when I grade it, but I don't want any questions when the evaluator gets there and they say, well, you only did 4 of the 5. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you for that clarity.
Okay, you're welcome, Brenda. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. The third of the analyses is the cultural competence analysis. And I just simply found, for myself, I looked online and I found this definition of cultural competence because I wanted to make sure that I had a clear understanding of it. So I just put it in there. And, you know, cultural competence is really just having an understanding of the different people and the different backgrounds and the different ethnicities and everything that's around, that you work with. You know, it's what comes to your school. It's who comes to your school. Now, I was talking with somebody earlier, and based on where they work, is a pretty affluent community. Guess what? That cultural competence is going to be so different from a community where I live in Robeson County, where we have a high Native American population, a high Hispanic population, African American population, and white population. So our cultural competence is going to be at our schools, for the most part, is going to be different than the cultural competence in other schools, and it's going to be the same thing for every one of you, based on where you are, based on your communities, your surroundings. That's going to measure and look at the cultural competence of your schools. And Dr. Tobias and Dr. Massengill have been practicing principals. They've been in more than one school, and I promise you, I know where Dr. Massengill just came from. The cultural competence there was very different from the school where he was when he was an assistant principal before he went to that school. Am I right, Dr. Massengill?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any comments that you'd like to make? Just brief comment on cultural competence before I move forward.
I think this is the most important part of school leadership, hands down, all day long. culture trumps strategy all day, every day. You can have the best teachers in the world with the best instructional strategy and the best materials and pedagogical resources at your disposal. But if you don't have happy people in your building, they're not going to do happy things. And so you have to strike a balance between ensuring that your internal and external stakeholders are happy with their environment with high expectations. And you can't have really high expectations and inspect what you expect without a high deal of cultural competence. So this
That's
is huge.
great. That's great. Thank you so much. And Dr. Tobias, at the end, when I get through, I want you to be thinking about, I want you to bring some closure to task 3 with your thoughts on this. As we look at this, what you're doing when you're looking at the cultural competence of the school, okay, every school has a vision and a mission statement. And I can tell you from way back, especially when it was the old SACS accreditation days, or you know, before advanced ed and those things, I can remember when those teams came in, and I can remember, you know, we would spend weeks and weeks working on that vision statement, that mission statement, so that we could have our dog and pony show when the team showed up, because everything had to be perfect and everything had to look pretty and everything had to be in place. But what I want you to do is I want you to take that vision statement and that mission statement with your team. And I want you to really look at it. When you look at your vision statement and you look at the mission statement for your school, it says one thing, but are you really as a school doing what that vision statement says and what that mission statement says? I want you to tear it apart, and I want you to tell the truth, because it may be good. You may be perfect with it. It may be, you may find out, yeah, we're doing everything that we say that we're going to do and more. But if you're not, this is your opportunity to be transparent and to put it in an action plan and to say, look, guys, we're not doing this. And for us to improve the cultural competence at this school, this is what we need to do. It may need to be revisited, rewritten. That may be part of your plan, but you're going to look at your vision and mission statement, and you're going to talk about it. If it's good, then fine, leave it alone. Then guess what? You get to look at school leadership. Again, this goes back to 2018 when the survey was done, the teacher working condition survey, and again with advanced ed. There's information there that addresses what the staff's perceptions were of school leadership in 2018. Now, what I want you to do here, or what you are to do here, you are to revisit that same area. You're to do, and again, go back and use the same questions again that were used then, and survey as many people as you can. You know, I don't know how many that's going to be, but survey, and I want you to see what the results are now. This has been 2 years since then. What are they saying now? And again, if it's new administration, then, you know, it's going to be very different probably. But again, this is what was said in 2018. But when you do look at the cultural competence of the school, what are people saying now? And again, you may even want to see if you can get, if you have access to them, you may want to get 2 or 3 parents to respond to that as well as part of it. And if you're in a large, a diverse school that has you know, a large ESL population, or a large, you know, look at all of those. You know, how do they feel when they come into the school? Does your Hispanic population feel like that they are a part of the school if it's a large population? I'm just using that as an example. You know, that's a part of the culture of the school. So you need to revisit, you need to visit and revisit that area. Let's look down here at, you're going to look at teacher quality as measured by experience and certifications. Where are you going to find that information? Where can you find it? Your report card, your teacher report card. Am I right, Dr. Tobias and Dr. Massengill? When they go to the state report card, all of that information for all your teachers has to be on their experience and their certifications, whether they're highly qualified, all of that information is there, right? So you should have no problem being able to go and find all the information you need on the staff at that school. And you're going to talk about it in this section. You're going to talk about parental involvement and support at your school. Again, this can be through, you can do a focus group on this. You may decide, okay, with the team that you're working with, it may be 2 or 3 people. Let's talk about, because that's a good representation of your school. What does parental involvement and support look like at this school? And you're simply going to talk about what it is and what it is not. That's all you're doing there. Conflict resolution. How does the school deal with problems in the school? And problems can come in many forms and fashions. You know, we think of just discipline all the time, but it's not just discipline. It could be, you know, if there's a parental complaint, how is that handled? If there is if teachers are not doing what they're supposed to do, how does the principal handle that? If you know, what procedures and what and a lot of this, Dr. Lamb discussed this in 603. This is a lot of 603 stuff here. But again, you're going to talk about how are problems handled at my school. And the big thing is there is it always equitable? You know, do we go by the book, or based on what you know and what your focus group tells you? You know, in some schools, I've seen this happen, and Dr. Tobias and Dr. Massengill and Ms. Naiman, you probably have as an assistant principal. Well, I've been told before, when I was an assistant principal, I've been told, well, you just need to leave that one alone. All of us have to, you've got to know what is the culture of your school based on how you deal with these kinds of things. Be real. Again, when you get through with this, it's going to be a plan of action. The principal may throw it out the door, may never use it, but guess what? You will have learned from it, and you will have been honest with the results of things. And then lastly, student achievement, test scores and results, and you know that all that information you're going to talk, again, you've talked about this before. It may be a matter of just going back and finding, look at your subgroups. You know, what does that say? Sometimes that will tell you a lot about the culture of a school. Am I right, principals? When you look at the subgroups and you see how they are or are not performing. So this should be very eye-opening when you get through. This analysis, when you get through, must contain a list. When you get through it, all of this narrative work and all, you're going to come up with a list of recommendations that's going to include specific activities and or programs designed to present an action plan that's going to improve the culture of your school. This is where we are, and we all can improve. So everybody, none of us can come up there and say, well, Dr. Stebbin, we're perfect. We're everybody, there's room for improvement. So when you get through with this, you and your team have got to make recommendations that say, this is where we are, but this is what I think, or we think we can do to get better. Okay, Dr. Tobias, would you like to make some closing comments on that? Okay.
First of all, I always have a statement that if the culture of the school is driven by the principal, and I want to say Jonathan had it in the chat about the mission and vision and the school not having one. I don't know if you saw that. I find that significant that the school does not have a mission and vision, because I'm like, I want to ask, what are they operating on? what is their goal, what is their, big focus, or because you need one. Culture drives everything. And
Amen.
these tasks are so important because I'm reading through them and I was like, dang, I wish I had done that when I was in college, because it would have made me so much better at the work I'm doing now, because I had to learn that by the seat of my pants, to learn how important it is to just focus on that. Academics are important, but if you don't get that piece down, everything is going to fall apart. Doesn't matter what people say, the culture is so important.
And that goes back, that mirrors what Dr. Massengill said. He said that he said this is really probably the most important, because if you don't, it goes back to that, and I know it's a cliche, but we've heard it all of our adult lives. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, I think that this sums up, as a leader, the culture of the school. People have to know, first of all, that you care. And once they know that you care, guess what? You can begin getting people to eat out of your hand. Once they know you care. But if they know you don't care, or they think that you don't care, then there will always be a wall up there, and you will never, ever be able to move as far as you would like to move until that wall comes down. So as an administrator, your job, your role is to make sure that you understand, and you work hard on developing a good culture for your school. Let's move on to task 4, and that will bring closure to the CAP for your purposes. Okay, after you've done all of this, you've done task 1, 2, and 3, you are going to develop an electronic framework. And again, remember when you did the APSO and you did the APTEL, and I think where you had to do the graphic organizer and you had to put all the information in there so you could visually see everything. This is another one of those kinds of things. You're going to graphically display the progress of the school related to cultural advocacy and safety. This framework will have data that will demonstrate graphically the beginning and ending data sets that measure the progress of the school on the parameters identified in the 3 analyses that we've talked about: the climate analysis, the school environmental analysis, and the cultural competence analysis. In addition, this graphic organizational chart should also meet the following criteria. And again, these things must be in there, but it's not limited to these things. If there's other things that you find that you want to do, and you can be creative with this as well. I'm not saying that, we've had people that actually have done a PERT chart, and if you do a PERT chart, then you've got to explain what that PERT chart is talking about. The narrative work must explain how this links to this, and this links to this, and whatever. But when you put it in the graphic organizer like you've been using, most people are able to read and understand that better. Some people love PERT charts and they can understand it better. Dr. Lamb will tell you that that's his least favorite thing, but they are permissible. So in addition to this, the graphic organizational chart should also meet the following criteria: design strategies for achieving a collaborative and positive work environment within the school, utilizes data sources to identify perceptions of the work environment, uses shared values, beliefs, and a shared vision to promote a school culture of learning and success, identify strategies for developing a sense of well-being among staff, students, and parents and guardians, and works with others to build systems and relationships that utilize the staff's diversity, ideological differences, and expertise to realize the school's goals. You're going to use all of this information here. This is going to be where your narrative work comes from, where all your strategies come from, where your plan, you're going to develop your plan from. This is the foundation for your plan. Using all of the information that you have gathered, the analyses from task 1, 2, and 3, all of it's going to be embedded into the plan, and this is going to serve again as the foundation for your plan. Once you get into it and you start breaking it apart, you'll understand this part a lot better. And if you have questions once you get there, then be ready. You don't have to wait until next week, but be ready by next week to ask me specifically. If you get to this place and you have a stumbling block, you can reach out to Dr. Tobias, you can reach out to Dr. Massengill. I'm always available. You can talk to me about this as well. But at this point, do you have a good feeling of what we're looking for when you complete all 4 parts of the cultural action advocacy plan? Do you understand what we're asking you to do? You're basically just analyzing and tearing apart what the existing culture of your school looks like and saying, this is where we are, this is what it looks like at my school. And then you're going to come to task 4 and you're going to say, knowing what I know, this is what we are proposing to do so that we can get better. Does all that make sense? Well, guess what? We finished 5 minutes till 7. Dr. Massengale, do we have any questions from anybody? It's okay if you unmute yourself and ask a question if you have a question at this point. Now, I won't go into this much detail with the CAP anymore after today. I will fall back on, if you have a question about something, I'll go back and I'll refer back to it. But I'm not going to go into this deep explanation anymore on the CAP after today. So everybody sounds good. Okay. Dr. Massengale, it's your time. You're with us this time. I'm going to let you do the benediction.
Thank you, Dr. Stebbin. One of the things that I would tell everyone is pay really close attention to your school's teacher working condition survey scores. And pay attention to them not just in a one-year snapshot, but they should be released really soon for this year. But then go back and look at 2 years prior. And absent any leadership changes, you should get a really good sense of the culture of your building from that TWC survey. Some principals do not put a lot of stock in that survey and they dismiss it. And they say, well, it's given a really bad time of year. Teachers are really frustrated and tired and stressed. And yes, they are. But if you're doing what you need to be doing from a cultural leadership perspective, you're going to see gains, particularly in that trust and mutual respect component of that survey. And that's going to pay dividends from an instructional perspective. The other point that I'll make is that an increasing number of superintendents, including the past 2 that I worked for, require principals to have a goal that is devoted to teacher working conditions survey components, particularly the teacher part of that survey. And so if your school is dipping down and pulling the district average down, that's going to affect recruitment and retention for the district. And you can expect your superintendent to start paying attention to that really quickly, even if they weren't to begin with. So all is good until it's not. And you can't wait until every other year to check on what's going on culturally. You need to be given dipstick surveys so you can anticipate any problems and work with your school improvement teams, your teacher advisory councils to fix any issues before that survey hits. That's what it's all about, continuous school improvement. It's not about surveying teachers as a gotcha. It's about fixing the problems and being proactive about it as part of that continuous school improvement.
Thank you. And remember, I said, Dr. Massengale, you have the benediction. All I can say is amen. That was good. That was good stuff. I will get this video out to all of you later on this evening. Again, you've got my phone number. You've got my email address. It's okay to reach out to me between now and next week. Don't wait until next Tuesday if there is an issue with something. Call me. Reach out to me. We've got a lot to do in a short time to do it in. And next week, for those of you that will be at that place, I did put a document in your Blackboard yesterday, and I've done the very same thing for the SIOP that I just went over with you with the CAP. So there is a helpful hints document for the SIOP for those that would happen to, if you happen to get there before I can get there with you in a class. So that won't slow you down. But even with that, if you're one of those that have progressed and you're at that point, it's okay to call me if you have a question about something, even with the SIOP, that you may not understand. I don't want to hold anybody back if you're moving forward with things. Okay? I will see you next Tuesday. Dr. Tobias, Dr. Massengale, thank you so much for joining us.